What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more film score. We're going to listen to a piece of music from a 2004 film called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a movie I absolutely love. It's truly one of my favorite movies. It's written by Walter Kaufman, directed by Michael Gondry, and the score is by Jon Brion. Ultimately, it's a movie about a very complicated relationship. It's a romance movie, but it's also sci-fi because there's a type of like neurosurgery where you can eliminate memories of a particular thing or person, and that type of neurosurgery is not legitimately available. So yeah, it's sort of like a sci-fi romance movie, but it's really like the emotions of the film are what stood out to me. And I've seen an interview with Jim Carrey where he's talking about playing the lead character named Joel Barish, and what he says about playing that character, I think, applies to the degree to which a movie like this will move you. He was saying that like it's not you can't play a character like Joel Barish unless in real life you've had your heart broken. Unless I think he even words it like unless you've had your heart like stomped on, and you've just been broken by a relationship, you can't really play that role. And I would say part of the reason the movie was so like moving and profound to me, apart from because there is a really cool psychological element to it, and there is a like suggestion. Like, I mean, the ending is very complicated, and it would take like several minutes to talk about, and I don't really like want to spend a lot of time, especially because a lot of people may not have seen the movie. But one of the reasons that I consider it so profound is that I've been through a couple relationships in my life. One in particular that was sort of long and just really complicated, and sort of I was left feeling brokenhearted at multiple points along the way. And so that experience meant that and that was before 2004. And indeed, like the ending of that longer painful relationship. But again, it was good in many ways also, or at different times also. But that one ended in 2003. So this movie came out 2004, and it just really like hit with a lot of the things that I had experienced, a lot of the feelings that I had had, and so on. Now, again, it was about this ability to take someone away from your own memory through a surgical procedure, but then like if you do that, will you regret it, and is there any way to get those memories back? And the movie sort of explores all of those concepts. And again, by the end, there's sort of an open-ended ending that can be interpreted a few different ways. I think the interpretation that I have, it's a very like beautiful like ending to that story. And indeed, in a way, it's not really an ending. So yeah, I won't spoil it, and I won't like taint any potential future watching of the film, but I do suggest checking it out, especially again if you know what it means to be in a relationship that is both beautiful and painful at the same time, or at different times. But yeah, so the music is not only very like sweet and kind of that feeling of being on a like awesome first day when everything's going well and it doesn't matter what you do or where you go, it's just like this sort of floaty like feeling. But there's also music with like a lot of heartbreak in it, and this piece is somewhere in between. I suppose it's more on the tender like sweet side, but I do think there's a implied like heart-rending nature to it. It's called Bookstore, and indeed one of the times you hear it is in a bookstore where the female lead played oh my god, I'm forgetting her name, the actress in Titanic, Kate Winslet. Played by Kate Winslet, who plays an American very convincingly, and her normal accent just evaporates. She works in a bookstore, and so at different points you're like in the bookstore, but again, because like you're in their heads because their memories are being like erased. Like there's a point where you're in the bookstore and like they're talking about really being in the bookstore before, whereas it like you're just in his head, and he even knows he's just in his head at this point. But they have a conversation about like one of the first times they talked and so on, and it's like it's this really touching moment, and then it like cuts to them walking on the beach. And when it plays when they're walking on the beach, it's just this like perfect aural setting to the emotion of the film at that moment. So it's a very like sweet and tender piece, but again, there is an implied like vulnerability in that tenderness. So let's get to it. This is by Jon Brion, Bookstore, from the 2004 film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Sounds like it's almost out of focus. So very short piece, obviously, but again, it's used in a couple points in the film, and it's just perfect. And in fact, I'm remembering it. It's not. It doesn't cut from the beach or to the beach from the bookstore. It's like the beach is kind of its own separate scene, and it starts playing later at night. Like they meet at the beach, and again, you see this scene much later as it's being remembered. But yeah, like when as night descends on the beach party, and everyone's kind of around the fire or whatever, they kind of go walking off on their own down the beach, and this plays. And again, in that moment, it's perfect. Even like more touching than when it's played in the actual bookstore scene, which gives the track its name. But yeah, very cool piece. The rest of the score has, again, a very like emotional vibe. In some cases, like bright and sweet. In other cases, like more painful. In fact, like there's the opening scene where it seems like Joel and Clementine, Kate Winslet's character, are meeting. Now it turns out they're like meeting again. It's complicated, but yeah, it seems like they're meeting, and they like hit it off really well on the train and like whatever. And then all of a sudden the credits start, and it's Joel, or Jim Carrey's character, like bawling in the car, and it's playing this very like kind of soulful, like sad ballad like song. So it's not just the score, it's also like a soundtrack too. So yeah, top movie. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. Let me know what you think of the piece. Other than that, I'll see you next time.